So those were made in Ukraine drones. Now let's talk about some made in India weapons like this one, the Pinaka. It's India's multi-barrel rocket launch system. The Pinaka was first thrust into action in 1999, that's during the Kargil war. It helped the Indian Army with its precision strike, so clearly the Pinaka proved its worth. It is one of our most effective and reliable weapons systems. Many even put it at par with the HIMARS, that's America's game-changing rocket launcher system. But why are we suddenly talking about the Pinaka? Because it seems to have ruffled some feathers. Apparently, it's giving Azerbaijan sleepless nights. They have summoned the Indian envoy over it. Let me give you some context here. In 2022, India and Armenia signed a defense deal. It was to procure the Pinaka missile launchers. The contract was worth 2,000 crores. For India, it was a boost for its indigenous defense industry. For Armenia, it increased its military capabilities. So both the countries were happy. But it left Azerbaijan seething. And why is that? Because Armenia and Azerbaijan are locked in a conflict. It's for this region, the Nagorno-Karabakh region. Internationally, it was recognized as part of Azerbaijan, but the residents are mostly Armenians, so it's a classic ethnic conflict. In 1917, Armenia and Azerbaijan fought over the region. In 2020, they waged a war again. And since then, the situation has remained tense. It's because of these tensions that Armenia chose the Pinaka. You see, Azerbaijan uses a lot of drones. They're called the suicide drones. In such a case, a rocket launcher system must shoot quickly and then disappear. The Pinaka has that capability, which makes it very important for Armenia. But for Azerbaijan, it seems like a red line. They've apparently protested over a cargo of Pinaka launchers reaching Armenia. We have some videos. They were put out by a news portal based in Baku, the capital of Azerbaijan. They show a camouflage truck convoy moving towards Iran's Nurduz border. That's the border it shares with Armenia. Now, this website claims that this was military cargo. It was first delivered to the Iranian port of Bandar Abbas, and then it was being moved to Armenia. And who did this cargo belong to? According to the website, it's from India. They cite quote-unquote independent sources to claim this. Hours after this report, Baku jumped into action. A presidential advisor summoned the Indian ambassador, this man, Sridharan Madhusudanan. He said Azerbaijan was concerned both about these shipments and also the growing India-Armenia military cooperation. He also apparently questioned the timing of these shipments. He said Azerbaijan is working on a peace deal with Armenia, so sending weapons at a time like this is an escalation. Now, all of these statements are based on reports. There have been no official confirmation or statements from Azerbaijan, and India too has not commented, officially at least. But we can see why Baku may be protesting. They've never been close to New Delhi. In fact, they're part of a new emerging axis, the Azerbaijan-Pakistan-Turkey axis. In the year 2017, these three countries signed a trilateral agreement. This was to establish security cooperation. Azerbaijan used Turkish drones to fight the war in Armenia. On the other side, Armenia and India have historical ties, so it's no surprise that they sealed a defense deal. And that too with the Pinaka. It is India's first genuinely indigenous system. Virtually none of its parts have been imported. So this is a significant deal. And it's not the only one with Armenia. They also want drones from India. They want ammunition and mid-range surface-to-air missiles from India. So Baku can complain all it wants to about meddling and escalating tensions. But this is how it works. When there is a conflict, countries ramp up their defenses everywhere in the world. In this case, Armenia turned to India. And India is working on establishing itself as a defense player, so it must seize any opportunity that comes its way. We begin with stapled visas, the latest Chinese provocation. Although not a new one, they've done it before. China is issuing stapled visas for Arunachal Pradesh. And their targets this time are Indian athletes. You see, China is hosting the World University Games. A martial arts team from India was going to participate. This is the Indian Wushu team. They have 8 members. 3 of them are from Arunachal Pradesh. All of them applied for Chinese visas, but the 3 athletes from Arunachal got stapled visas. So the entire team has pulled out. They will not go for the tournament. And like I said, China has done this before. It's an old trick of theirs to harass the people of Arunachal Pradesh and to provoke India. But why does China do it? because it says the entire state of Arunachal Pradesh belongs to them. They call it South Tibet. One problem though, their claim has no basis in fact. The whole world accepts India's sovereignty on Arunachal. But when China wants to reignite this dispute, it resorts to such tactics. The question is, why do it now? More importantly, how should India respond? For starters, India has at least acknowledged that this happened. New Delhi has lodged a protest. They've called the move quote-unquote unacceptable, which is right, but hardly enough. Mere condemnation is not taking us anywhere. The app bans and the trade restrictions have had a limited impact. So what should New Delhi do? Is it time for India to change its approach? On Vantage tonight, we'll discuss this. First, let's bring you more details of the case, starting with what are staple visas and why they're so controversial. Now, if you have a passport and you've traveled overseas, you know how visas work. They're usually printed on one page of your passport. In some cases, the issuing country uses a sticker. The idea is for the visa to stay on your passport permanently. Now, some countries even stamp them. They stamp the visas. They do this in addition to the printing or the sticker. This is the standard practice. But staple visas do not work that way. They are attached with pins or staples to your passport. They can be torn off or detached. And they're used to make a point. Staple visas are basically a political tool. China started using them in the year 2005. Not every Indian citizen who applied got a visa like this. China gave such visas to Indians from Arunachal Pradesh and in some cases to Indians from Jammu and Kashmir. This happened in 2008 and 2009. But their target mostly has been Arunachal Pradesh. How does it help Beijing? This is their twisted way of sending a message that Arunachal Pradesh is a part of China. So if you're visiting from there, you don't actually need a visa. That's what they're trying to say, and this is problematic on many levels. It's a challenge to India's sovereignty, also a national security issue, because the staple visas are just one part of the story. China repeatedly undermines India's position on Arunachal. It issues Chinese names for Indian cities and releases controversial maps. So far, 3 such lists have been issued. The first one was in 2017, the second in 2021, and the third in April this year. 3 months later, the staple visas are back, while the situation at the border remains unchanged. This week, we heard from the Chinese again. They talked about what they call the Bali Consensus. We reported about it earlier this week. There was a meeting in Johannesburg. India's National Security Advisor Ajit Doval met Wang Yi, who has now returned as China's foreign minister, Wang Yi. Now, Doval told Wang Yi that Chinese provocations have eroded trust. In response, China spoke about a consensus between Modi and Xi. The two leaders spoke last year at the G20 summit in Bali. There's a video of them shaking hands. India was asked about this encounter last year. India played it down, saying they were just exchanging courtesies. But now India is offering a completely different version. Listen to this.
With regard to the question relating to the handshake between the Prime Minister and President Xi Jinping, I will only say that Prime Minister Modi and President Xi Jinping, who were both attending the G20 dinner yesterday, hosted by the Indonesian president, exchanged courtesies at the conclusion of the dinner.
During the Bali G20 summit last year, Prime Minister and President Xi Jinping, at the conclusion of the dinner hosted by the Indonesian president, exchanged courtesies and spoke of the need to stabilize our bilateral relations. So that's the statement I'm making. I think Foreign Secretary did mention, maybe he didn't mention the second part of it. He did talk about exchanging courtesies and I think there was the general discussion or spoke of the need for stabilize our bilateral relationship or relations.
Was this discussed in the same exchange of courtesies, or was there a separate meeting between Modi and Xi Jinping in Bali? No side is prepared to divulge more details right now, but whatever be the case, it has made virtually no difference to the relationship. It has not stabilized the relationship. The border standoff has not been resolved. And now China is testing India on another front, Arunachal Pradesh. Clearly, dialogue and diplomacy have not worked. So is it time for India to try a different approach, to consider some retaliatory options? And what will those look like? China is issuing staple visas. So what is stopping India from doing the same? Issue staple visas to the people of Tibet who want to come to India. And this won't be without precedent. It is done in cases where passports and visas are not recognized. One of the most notable examples is that of Israel. Before the normalization wave, multiple Arab nations refused to stamp or recognize Israeli passports. Some countries still do it, like Iran, Kuwait, Lebanon, Libya, Syria, Saudi Arabia, even Pakistan. These countries do not recognize Israeli passports. In some cases, passport holders with an Israeli visa are not even admitted. They're denied entry. So there are ways to respond proportionally. It is only a matter of intent. Otherwise, you can issue one more statement, ban one more app, and remain stuck in this impasse. On to India now. The central government is plotting some moves in Manipur. The state has been gripped by violence since May, and last week there was a new trigger. A video from 3 months ago began circulating on social media. It showed a mob of men parading 2 naked women. One of them had been gang raped. The video shook our collective conscience. There was outrage on the streets and online. But has it led to anything? Well, the state government has proved to be a sitting duck. They arrested just 7 people, 7 out of a mob of 800. Plus all the senior officials, including the chief minister, have retained their jobs. So zero accountability from the state. But now the central government is making some changes. Home Minister Amit Shah spoke about Manipur on Thursday. He made 2 important announcements. One, to transfer the case to the CBI, that's the Central Bureau of Investigation. It is India's premier probe agency. Honestly, it should have been done earlier. Those 2 women accused the state police of being complicit. Apparently, the cops handed them over to the mob. How can you expect that same department to catch the culprits or even be unbiased? So giving the case to the CBI is the right decision. The second announcement was about the trial. The centre wants it to be moved out of Manipur. Reports say the Home Ministry has already made the request to the Supreme Court. Again, you can understand why. It's normal for sensitive cases to be tried elsewhere. The idea is to contain the fallout. The Home Minister also talked about a crucial lead in the case. He says the man who recorded this video has been arrested. His phone has also been seized. Now, why is this important? The government hopes that this arrest will help connect the dots, maybe track down the rest of the mob. It's a stretch, but that's what the government is betting on. In the meantime, what is Manipur's chief minister up to? Well, nothing really. He's clearly lost control of the police. His authority is limited to Imphal Valley, and his people do not trust him. I guess someone has to sit in the chair. The truth is, things are not going fast enough. Only 7 people have been arrested, 0 people have lost their job, and the violence refuses to end. Just to be clear, we're not saying that things have not changed since May. They have. The number of deaths has come down consistently. In fact, the last one was reported on the 18th of July. But the absence of death does not mean peace. More than 50,000 people are still displaced in the state. They are living in temporary camps and shelters. Their houses and villages have been torched. Once they're back home, we can say there is peace. Once the Meiteis and the Kukis agreed to rebuild trust, we can say there is peace. Those are the 2 major communities in Manipur, also the 2 warring sides. The equation between them is crucial to this conflict. The Kukis are mostly Christian. They live in the hills of Manipur. The Meiteis are mostly Hindus. They live in the Imphal Valley. Now, let me underline the word mostly, because religion is not the fault line here. There are various other issues at play, like land ownership or jobs and educational quotas or preservation of language. These are not communities only defined by religion. Take the Meiteis, for example. Around 80% of them are Hindus, 16% follow the local religion called Sanamahism, and about 8% are Muslims. A lot of those reporting and commenting on Manipur have completely missed this nuance, including leaders and the media in the West. For them, it's a religious clash. Majority Hindus versus minority Christians. That's how the Western media paints it. Sadly, that's also how many Indian commentators have put it. What explains this mischaracterization? Perhaps ignorance. The Northeast has long been ignored by governments. There has been little effort to understand their sentiments, let alone their history. That's one problem. The second is internet knowledge. Overzealous keyboard warriors have jumped to analyze Manipur. They have hijacked the narrative. Many handles have described the Kukis as Christian terrorists. Others have converted Meitei demands into a Save Hindu campaign. Neither is true. In fact, the central government has warned against this. Home Minister Amit Shah visited the state towards the end of May. He spent 3 days there. He talked to more than 40 groups, 40. Before leaving, he had a message for the security forces there. Act in an unbiased manner, he said, and that's very important right now. We can't afford to put religious filters on this violence. We need to bring both communities to the table. We need to get them talking. Around 12 rounds of talks have been held so far, 6 each with Kuki and Meitei groups. The key is to push on to create conditions for a lasting peace. And how do you do that? By building trust, by showing that the government is not picking sides. This gang rape case will be a litmus test on that. If quick justice is guaranteed, things may improve. There's often debate about what's the oldest job in the world. Some say it's farming, others say it's sex work. But tonight, let's talk about the newest job, trolling. It's a full-time job nowadays. You spend the whole day bullying and criticizing someone. There are millions of trolls on the internet. Meet their new target, Sudha Murthy. She's a writer and philanthropist. She's also the wife of Infosys co-founder Narayan Murthy. Why are trolls targeting her? Because of what she said in a recent interview. Listen to this. I am a pure vegetarian. I don't even eat eggs or garlic. What I'm scared of is that the same spoon will be used for both vegetarian and non-vegetarian food. It weighs on my mind a lot. It's pretty casual, right? Well, not in the wild wilderness called Twitter or X, I guess. This statement has divided people. Some people are calling Sudha Murthy casteist. Others have defended her. They say it's all about personal choice. And this is just one example. We've seen so many in recent years. You say something innocuous on social media, you probably have no malicious intent, but the next day your inbox is full. Trolls are attacking you left, right and center. Your words have been twisted to mean something completely different, something you did not even imagine. What does it say about the times we live in? Well, 2 things really. 1, everyone is looking for a villain. If you can't find a real one, just make up something, like caste and food choices. And 2, it's pretty easy being a keyboard warrior. You don't have to enter the public gaze. You don't even have to use your real name. Just shoot and scoot. And this is problematic on many levels. It's like you're creating a problem just to criticize it. But things weren't always like this. Being woke and raising your voice was considered good at one point. If you were woke, you were cool. But have things gone too far? Well, for most people, the answer is yes. Look at this report from 2017. Students in Hampshire attacked students from another college. Why? Because their hair was braided. Apparently, hair braids is cultural appropriation. Do you see how silly that sounds? I'll give you another example. This is from PETA, the animal rights group. They want you to stop saying things like kill 2 birds with 1 stone or beat a dead horse. Why? Because apparently it's anti-animal. Now, don't get me wrong. They do some great work on animal rights. But is this criticism necessary? No one is serious about killing 2 birds with 1 stone or beating a dead horse. It's just something you say without any malicious intent. Some of you may think, why bother with such issues at all? If people are woke, let them be. But such comments impact the way we think. It may put off people who are actually allies. Take a look at this article. It says the far right has hijacked the trend of at-home fitness, basically that workouts have been politicized. Does it make sense to you? Workouts have nothing to do with politics, yet this writer has found a villain where there was none. And the result is this: more people are feeling alienated. The average person you meet is not the incarceration of evil. They support equality, they try to stay away from violence, and they try to say the right things most of the times. What they oppose is trivialism. And now it's time for Vantage Shots, images that tell the story, starting with Niger, a country in West Africa where supporters of a coup set fire to the headquarters of the ruling party. A runaway bull wreaked havoc in the streets of Peru. 5 people were injured. The video of a giant Hummer is going viral. It is 3 times bigger than a regular SUV. This car has been dubbed Humzilla, and reportedly it belongs to the royal family of the UAE. And finally, taking you back in history to the year 1914, on July 28, the First World War began after Austria-Hungary declared a war on Serbia. Following this, more than 30 nations declared war between 1914 and 1918. It led to unprecedented destruction and loss of human life. We may be leaving you on a grim note, but we hope your weekend is happier. Thank you for watching. We'll see you on Monday.
The enemy was undoubtedly attacking on the... The enemy was undoubtedly...
anda viejo, mete mano viejo.